Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Nicole Curbs and I like to talk about what I like to watch and what I like to read. At least I think so. Right now I'm also still kind of trying to figure out what kind of content I want to make. So I might deviate from movies and TV at some point if I run out of stuff to talk about, which I highly doubt is going to happen just because there's too much good TV out there right now. Also, note here, I'm sorry, I'm just going to hold this because if I clip it, it sucks, okay? This is day 3 of my Vlogmas adventure, and today I want to talk about some of my favorite movies that have come out this year. I'm going to try to keep it short, but also, if I'm being honest, I'm realizing that I actually haven't seen as many movies this year as I did last year. I'm kind of bummed about that, but honestly right now, I have a really busy schedule, so if I actually made time to watch a movie, I just kind of was really cutthroat about it and just was like, this needs to be worth it, okay? Also, if I've missed a banger of a movie this year, please list it in the comments below and I'll add it to my watch list as soon as possible. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is They Cloned Tyrone. Tongue twister. It was released on Netflix this July and it stars John Boyega, Jamie Foxx, and Teyonah Parris. This fun homage to blaxploitation films from the 70s kind of centers around Fontaine, John Boyega's character, who is a drug dealer that lives in this suburb that's just named The Glen. He has a very regular schmegular kind of everyday routine, interacting with his customers and local sex workers, and things are not as simple as they seem. Side note, if you hear Darcy snoring or biting herself, I'm really sorry. Okay, it's my dog. The production design and the costumes are just really cool. I'm a sucker for a distinct aesthetic, and the storyline is just so unlike the generic action movies that you see out there every day. You're rooting for a drug dealer, a pimp, and a sex worker to uncover this intense conspiracy just lurking beneath the surface. They're not side characters or background characters like in Grand Theft Auto or something. They're the main characters, they're the heroes. Darcy, stop. Love you. This genre bender has a lot of elements of sci-fi, mystery, absurdism, and satire. There's also a lot of themes where they talk about income inequality and systemic injustice. There's no one in this neighborhood that's necessarily thriving, and there doesn't really seem to be a way that they can get out of the neighborhood either. While this kind of sounds like heavy subject matter, and it is, the story isn't necessarily a downer at all. It's pulpy, it's punchy, it's fun the entire time. The cast has amazing chemistry, and the twists and turns of the story just kind of keep you guessing the entire time. Another thing that's so cool about this movie is that this is the directorial debut of Jewel Taylor. This is his first feature film. And also, this script was optioned from this site called The Blacklist, where you can find original scripts that haven't been produced yet. And Jewel Taylor cited They Live, Groundhog's Day, It Follows, and Napoleon Dynamite as influences. Okay. I'm a huge fan of horror movies. And possession movies have been kind of done to death, or so I thought, until I watched Talk to Me. Dude, I'm telling you, this is the one. If you watch nothing else except this one, you will be so glad. So, A24's Talk to Me has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, okay? So it was released in July in theaters and then September for streaming. A24's Talk to Me has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, for good reason. It follows a group of friends who discover a way to contact spirits through this embalmed hand of a dead medium. And as teenagers do, they all take turns doing it. And as every generation fucking would, they film the possessions to put on the internets. And as teenagers are also wont to do, they take it too far and then their lives are never the same after that. That was dramatic. I'm sorry. But listen, one of the things that just warms my heart and soul is rooting for the underdog. And if this is your first feature, I'm in your corner. And this is the directorial debut of Danny and Michael Philippou, also known as Raka Raka, right here on YouTube. Their channel is mostly horror comedy videos, and they've won Best International Channel at the Streamies. They choose to shoot in Australia. This was shot in Adelaide, their hometown. They have really strong ties to the filmmaking culture out there, and I respect the hell out of that, honestly. This film hooks you right away. It opens at a house party where a troubled kid stabs his brother and then unalives himself. The cast is primarily made up of young unknown actors, to me anyway. The only actor I recognized was Miranda Otto, who plays the no-nonsense mom of two of the kids involved in this seance ring. This film doesn't use a lot of CGI or After Effects, but it has some amazing shots. The camera movement is dynamic, it's engaging. I love the makeup and design of the ghosts you meet as well. You see them kind of decay more and more the longer they're in limbo or wherever they are. What I think also ultimately sets this movie apart from other possession movies is that this one is disconnected from religion entirely. Most possession movies, they have to do with demons, and they can only be beaten back by priests and holy water and Latin. But the mechanics of the possession in Talk to Me is more ritualistic, kind of like a Ouija board. You grip the hand, you say the things, and then that's it. But just because the kids have figured out a formula to get the taste of the possession that they're looking for, it doesn't mean that the ghosts are always going to follow the rules, you know? I honestly kind of forgot that Megan came out this year. This year is just like flown by. Okay, so Megan came out in January of this year, and it has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Produced by Blumhouse, Megan stars Allison Williams as a brilliant roboticist named Gemma, who suddenly becomes the sole caretaker of her 8-year-old niece Katie after her sister dies in a car accident. She has no idea how to take care of a kid, which is ironic because she works at a toy company, but she knows how to connect to children, in theory. Anyway, so she designs Megan, a marvel of AI, a lifelike doll, programmed to be a child's greatest companion and a parent's greatest ally. Under intense pressure at work, Gemma decides to pair Megan with Katie in an attempt to resolve both problems, and it works out a little too well at first. This film is a lot of fun. Blumhouse has figured out a formula where they can release horror films every year on a really small budget and somehow yield a huge box office return every time. Most recently, they've really leaned into the niche of horror comedy, and I think that they do a really good job with these, like Happy Death Day and Freaky. Megan balances horror elements with a really good dose of comedy, like having Megan sing Titanium out of nowhere or having her do a whole ass TikTok dance right before coming after a guy with the blade of a paper cutter. I think that this film is really timely as well because AI has been on top of mind for everybody this year. Also, I think it gives great commentary about a generation that's been raised by tech, who can't really connect with busy parents, who were just handed iPads, who develop parasocial relationships with YouTubers. It makes sense that a toy like this would be the next logical step in the iPad baby pipeline. Everyone's looking for a way to streamline their workflow. Why not automate your parenting? It's called productivity. Ever heard of it? Also, if you hear Bentley coming up the stairs, sorry. He's my hyper baby right now. All right, so I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Barbie because, duh. Released in July of this year, Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, has a perfect life in Barbieland until she starts having an existential crisis. Written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, this film is beautifully shot. It balances comedic elements with a touching story about womanhood and finding your purpose as a woman, or as a Barbie, or both. This film had basically everybody in it, from John Cena to Helen freaking Mirren, and everybody did an amazing job. There were no weak performances at all. I love all of the Kens, but Alan also, he really has my heart. I'm sure you've all heard about how amazing this film was. I'm sure the last thing you ever want to hear is Billie Eilish's song, What Was I Made For? Thanks, TikTok. You killed this song. You killed it. There are two elements of this production that really stood out to me. So I really want to just harp on those. The production design itself is amazing, complete with actual replicas of Barbie accessories from her dream house to her Jeep. But there were also all of these sets were hand fucking painted. That's old school filmmaking movie magic. The attention to detail, the imaginative design of all these sets is just mind blowing. And unfortunately, it's kind of a lost art of filmmaking because, now we have green screens. So when filmmakers opt to do stuff like this, it's really just a testament to their commitment to getting the project right. So if you've seen an Evil Dead film, you know there's going to be three elements, okay? A group of people who are holed up somewhere where they can't leave. A book made of skin that one of them will read out loud. And last but not least, Deadites, the evil demons who possess the protagonist and kill them. Those are going to come out. So this film takes place in a dilapidated apartment building in LA, where stage tech Beth comes to visit her sister Ellie and her 3 kids. I still can't get over the fact that a short film that Sam Raimi made in 1978, Within the Woods, has turned into a horror film franchise and a TV show spinoff. That's so cool to me. So these films usually move very quickly, they make the 90 minutes fly by so fast. And I liked this one because it wasn't a group of 20-somethings all trapped in a cabin. It was about a family. It was about motherhood. Definitely give this one a watch. If feel like lately I have fallen into a bit of an obsession with like murder mysteries. I think that Knives Out really revived this genre because a ton of fun mysteries have come out these last few years. But the OG of murder mysteries, we all know, is Agatha Christie. Based on her 1969 novel Halloween Party, a haunting in Venice takes place in Venice just after World War II. Detective Hercule Poirot, famed detective and one of the longest-running characters of Agatha Christie's novels, goes to a Halloween party at a palazzo, which is apparently a grand residence in Italy, not just wide, flowy pants. Anyway, this palazzo is owned by this famous opera singer, Rowena Page, and she's invited Joyce Reynolds, a famous medium, to this Halloween party. Poirot is hellbent on revealing this medium to be a fraud and to prove that ghosts aren't real, but this Halloween party takes a fatal turn, of course, and Poirot must solve the case. Kenneth Branagh does an amazing job both as the director and as Detective Poirot. What I love about his iterations of Christie's work is that the production design and the look and feel is so old school, Hollywood, golden age, very glam. These stories, granted they were written at the height of Hollywood's golden age, but I appreciate his attention to detail to make it really feel like these stories have come to life, like exactly as you'd imagine them when you're reading these books. I was so impressed as well with this film. I actually went back to rewatch Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express as well. Highly recommend those if you're looking for like a cozy, spooky movie night. I know this is kind of a weird transition from A Haunting in Venice, but I love a horror comedy, okay? And I love Awkwafina. So Renfield was released in April of this year, and it's got a 58 on Rotten Tomatoes with critics, but 79% with audiences. I wouldn't say this is highbrow or anything, but I also don't think that everything has to be. I think that when you're debating what you should watch, you should pay attention to what, both the audience and critics are saying about it. It's like comparing Mean Girls to Titanic. They're both good in their own way. Anyway, so Renfield is Dracula's loyal familiar. For those of us who don't know about vampire lore, a familiar is a human servant who procures whatever Dracula needs, which is usually food. In this film, Renfield, played by Nicholas Hoult, is suddenly having a bit of a realization that his relationship with Dracula is toxic and very codependent, and that Dracula is super manipulative. So once they move to New Orleans for a little bit, Renfield seeks out a therapy group for survivors of narcissists and starts to find his voice. He also starts using his familiar powers like super strength to do good, like attacking the abusive exes of his friends in group therapy. He crosses paths with Teddy Lobos, played by Ben Schwartz, who is part of a crime family in the city, who's also being hunted by Rebecca, played by Awkwafina, a plucky and determined cop on the force who has a vendetta against this crime family. So it's kind of a cat and mouse game. The cast does a phenomenal job. You can tell that everybody's having so much fun. Like, Nicolas Cage does an amazing job as Dracula, of course. I mean, look at him. Awkwafina and Ben Schwartz really helped this film lean into the comedy of the horror comedy. This is actually based on a story written by Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead and Invincible fame. And it's a really fun, easy kind of movie to watch. Okay, so last on my list is Boogeyman. Can you tell that I went hard on horror this year? This one released in June of this year, and it stars Chris Messina from The Mindy Project and Sophie Thatcher from Yellow Jackets. It's also directed by Rob Savage and is based on a short story by the one and only Stephen King. I mix up Rob Zombie and Rob Savage a lot. Rob Savage has done a lot of fun digital horror films like Host and Dashcam, whereas Rob Zombie does more like gory, mean-spirited horror stuff like House of a Thousand Corpses and stuff like that. So Boogeyman follows Sadie and her little sister Sawyer as they're healing from the sudden loss of their mother. Their father, played by Chris Messina, has a hard time supporting them emotionally, and he kind of just throws himself into his work as a therapist because, you can be emotionally supportive for strangers, just not for your kids, right? Anyway, so one day a patient named Lester Billings arrives to his office asking for help, claiming a supernatural entity's kind of following him. And it turns out he was right, and that he also brought it into his therapist's home. So now they must kind of figure out how to expel it for once and for all, This one reminds me a lot of It Follows due to the kind of chain letter sort of mechanics of this monster, as well as Smile, which deals with kind of the haunting effects of trauma. Dealing with themes of grief and loss, the boogeyman is almost like a manifestation of grief and loss. It's relentless, it's familiar to everybody, and it spreads like wildfire. I will say the jump scares are pretty sparse, and they did a great job with the pacing. It's a common pitfall with other horror films where they either can't build the jump scares at all, or they just pop in a jump scare every 3 seconds. But I think that this one did a great job exploring the difficulties that we all have with asking for support, as well as supporting each other through difficult times. Messina does a great job as a tortured dad, trying to connect with his kids without opening up emotionally. I think the cast did a great job, and I will say that there's a handful of background characters, though, that are like the friends of the teenager Sadie. I felt like they were kind of unnecessarily cruel, like from the get. It wasn't a subtle build-up. They're just kind of the worst from the beginning to the very end. And also, there was one character I wish had a little more screen time. Marin Ireland plays Rita, wife of Lester Billings, the patient from the beginning, and she's a badass. Marin Ireland's just an underrated actor. She's phenomenal in this show called Why the Last Man, which I'll definitely be doing a video on at some point. I appreciated she wasn't like a tortured, weepy side character like, I don't know what else to do. She was like, what's up, you two? Let's get that boogeyman. And they've attempted a boogeyman film several times, but I mean, this one was great. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watched it late at night, and I had to turn on every single light on my way to bed, just in case. I'm like 30. I should like be over this, but for some reason I was just like, nope. Okay, so that was my list of this year's films that I really enjoyed. I know I'm behind. I missed 2 Wes Anderson films this year. I really don't want to talk about it. I'm on it though, I promise. Anyway, okay, so help me flesh out my watch list. What were your favorite movies from this year? What are you looking forward to for next year? Let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.